I just fucked up. I just fucked up. It ain't nothing I can do about it. It ain't nothing I can do about it. I just fucked up, bro. I'll never see another birthday. It's over with, Joe. If you fucking love me, say that shit now, because this gonna be the last time they never say it. If you love me, you really love me, call my phone, because this gonna be the last time you gonna be able to say it, Joe. I just fucked up. It ain't nothing I can do about it. It ain't nothing I can do about it. I just fucked up, bro. I love that woman dearly, bro. I love her dearly, bro. I love that lady dearly, bro. On my soul, bro. On my soul, Joe. Like, I'm hurt. I'm hurt like a motherfucker. I'm hurt like a motherfucker, Joe, because I can't even believe I just did, and I don't even know what just pushed me to snap like that, Joe. I don't even know what just pushed me to snap like that, Joe. That shit just, I just lost it. I just lost it, bro. It's over with. It's over with, G. All that, man, look. Ain't no motherfucker. Motherfucker ain't gonna see me no more, G. I ain't running. I've been on a run over a year and a half. I'm not running from these people no more, bro. They come get me, bro. They come get me, bro. They come get me. That's all I'm gonna say. They come get me.
I threw everything away. Ain't no coming back from this. The words tumbled from Larry Sistrunk's mouth as tears streamed down his face during a Facebook Live broadcast in February 2021. His voice cracked with what appeared to be remorse, but the performance came just hours after he had pulled the trigger 11 times on Lasonya Agee, the mother of his child. The camera captured his feigned distress as he confessed to the shooting, seemingly seeking sympathy from viewers, while Lasonya fought for her life in a hospital bed. His tears dried quickly as he calculated his next move, unaware that his digital confession would become crucial evidence. This wasn't a moment of genuine regret, but rather the final act of control from a man who had systematically terrorized Lasonya for years, culminating in a brutal attack that would forever change multiple lives. On the 21st of February, 2021, in the 7800 block of South Muskegon in Chicago, what began as an argument escalated into horrific violence. Lasonya Agee, exiting her vehicle, refused to get back into Larry Sistrunk's car during their dispute. His response was immediate and devastating. He opened fire at close range, striking her 11 times. The brutality didn't end there. Lasonya's grandmother and uncle, potential witnesses to the crime, were also shot 8 times between them. Throughout this nightmare, Lasonya's 3-year-old son watched in terror, miraculously escaping physical harm, but bearing witness to the attempted murder of his mother. Surveillance cameras captured the entire incident, documenting a premeditated attack that represented the culmination of years of harassment, threats, and systemic failures. Despite multiple restraining orders and police reports, Lasonya had never received the protection she desperately needed. If you've ever wondered why someone doesn't just leave an abusive relationship, this story will show you the dangerous reality many victims face. Stay with me to understand how the system fails those most vulnerable, and what warning signs we should never ignore. Your awareness could save someone's life. In today's episode, we'll examine how Larry Sistrunk's campaign of terror against Lasonya began long before the shooting, costing her job, safety, and nearly her life. We'll reveal how he falsely accused her of mail theft at the Postal Service, where she worked, systematically isolating her from financial independence. We'll explore the critical failures of law enforcement who repeatedly dismissed her concerns, citing Sistrunk's parental rights even as danger mounted. You'll hear about the heroic actions of Lasonya's 3-year-old son during the attack, urging his wounded mother to flee. Most importantly, we'll analyze the warning signs that preceded this violence, signs that are present in thousands of potentially lethal domestic situations right now. Through Lasonya's extraordinary survival story, we'll identify concrete steps for protection and examine how communities can better support those trapped in the dangerous process of leaving an abuser. Before her name became associated with one of Chicago's most harrowing domestic violence cases, Lasonya Agee was known for her resilience and dedication to building a stable life. Growing up on Chicago's South Side, she navigated the challenges of urban life with determination, focusing on creating opportunities for herself despite the obstacles in her path. Friends described Lasonya as someone who prioritized family above all else. She maintained close relationships with her grandmother and uncle, who would later become victims themselves when they tried to protect her. This tight-knit family unit provided Lasonya with support through difficult times, creating a foundation of love that would prove crucial during her recovery. Lasonya's aspirations extended beyond her neighborhood. She pursued steady employment and worked to create stability in a community where economic opportunities were often limited. Her commitment to self-improvement was evident in her career choices and her dedication to providing for her young son. Like many women who eventually find themselves in abusive relationships, Lasonya's early life showed no indication of the trauma that awaited her. She made choices based on hope and trust, the same human instincts that Larry Sistrunk would later exploit and manipulate as their relationship deteriorated into a dangerous power dynamic that nearly cost Lasonya her life. Lasonya found purpose and financial independence through her position at the United States Postal Service. The job represented more than just a paycheck. It was security, benefits, and a respected career path in federal service. Her colleagues knew her as reliable and hardworking, someone who took pride in her role within an essential public institution. The position offered Lasonya the stability needed to support herself and her young son, providing a pathway to middle-class security. This employment represented everything that abusers typically seek to destroy: financial independence, social connections outside the relationship, and the self-confidence that comes from professional accomplishment, all targets Sistrunk would eventually set out to demolish. At the center of Lasonya's world was her 3-year-old son, a bright-eyed boy whose future drove her every decision. Their bond transcended the ordinary parent-child relationship. It became the lifeline that would ultimately help her survive the unthinkable. She structured her work schedule, home life, and personal goals around providing him with opportunities she hadn't experienced in her own childhood. Their daily routine included morning rituals, bedtime stories, and the 1,000 small moments that build a child's sense of security. Neighbors often saw them walking hand in hand, Lasonya patiently answering his endless questions about the world. This connection would be tested in the most horrific circumstances imaginable when her son witnessed the shooting. In the aftermath of the attack, it was her son's voice. "Come on, Mom." That gave Lasonya the supernatural strength to fight for survival. The maternal instinct to protect him became more powerful than the 11 bullets intended to end her life. The relationship between Lasonya and Larry Sistrunk followed a pattern familiar to domestic violence experts, but often invisible to those experiencing it. What began with excessive attention, constant text messages, unexpected visits to her workplace, and demands to know her whereabouts, was misinterpreted as devotion rather than the control it actually represented. Friends noticed subtle changes in Lasonya's behavior. She began canceling plans last minute, seemed hesitant when discussing certain topics, and gradually withdrew from social circles. These shifts coincided with Sistrunk's increasing presence in her life and his subtle criticism of her friendships and family relationships. The first physical incident, grabbing her arm during an argument, was dismissed as a momentary loss of temper. By the time more serious violence emerged, Lasonya was already isolated from support systems that might have helped her recognize the danger. The relationship had become a trap, disguised as love, but built on a foundation of power and intimidation. As months passed, Sistrunk's tactics evolved from subtle manipulation to overt domination. He established rules about Lasonya's clothing, monitoring her appearance and criticizing outfits he deemed too attractive. Phone checks became routine. He demanded access to her messages, call logs, and social media accounts, creating an environment where privacy ceased to exist. Financial control tightened like a vice. Sistrunk insisted on knowing every dollar Lasonya earned and spent. When she resisted, he escalated to taking her bank cards or borrowing money that was never returned. This economic abuse created dependency, making the prospect of leaving increasingly difficult as her resources dwindled. The psychological warfare intensified through calculated unpredictability. Periods of apparent calm and affection would suddenly transform into explosive anger over minor issues, a dinner prepared incorrectly or a perceived slight in her tone of voice. This inconsistency kept Lasonya in a perpetual state of hypervigilance, walking on eggshells in her own home. Most disturbing was Sistrunk's use of their son as a control mechanism. He threatened to take the child away, claiming no court would grant custody to an unfit mother, a label he created through his own distorted narrative. For Lasonya, The fear of losing her son became more terrifying than the abuse itself, a fear Sistrunk expertly exploited to maintain his dominance. Sistrunk's campaign to isolate Lasonya reached its peak when he targeted her employment at the Postal Service. Recognizing her job as a source of independence and dignity, he methodically worked to destroy this foundation of stability. The attack began with excessive calls to her workplace, creating disruptions that drew negative attention from her supervisors. When harassment proved insufficient, Sistrunk escalated to a calculated scheme, falsely reporting Lasonya for mail theft, a federal offense that carries serious penalties. The accusation triggered an internal investigation that cast a shadow over her previously spotless employment record. Despite the lack of evidence, the stigma and stress of the investigation created an untenable work environment. Eventually, the combination of workplace disruptions, false allegations, and Sistrunk's interference with her ability to maintain regular hours led to Lasonya losing her position. With her financial independence shattered, she became more vulnerable and dependent, precisely as Sistrunk had intended. As the danger escalated, Lasonya turned to the legal system, believing restraining orders would provide the protection she desperately needed. She documented threats, photographed injuries, and filed detailed reports of Sistrunk's escalating behavior. The process was exhausting, hours spent in courthouse waiting rooms, reliving traumatic incidents for skeptical officials, and facing intrusive questions about why she hadn't left sooner. Despite her diligence, the restraining orders proved to be little more than paper shields. Sistrunk repeatedly violated the orders, with minimal consequences, sometimes appearing at her home or workplace within hours of court hearings. Each violation required new reports, new hearings, and renewed trauma. Law enforcement responses to these violations were inconsistent at best. Officers sometimes arrived hours after emergency calls or minimized the danger, treating domestic disputes as low-priority incidents. The system designed to protect Lasonya instead created a documented trail of failures that would only end when bullets replaced threats. The institutional breakdowns that failed Lasonya weren't isolated incidents, but interconnected failures across multiple systems. Child custody laws became weapons in Sistrunk's arsenal when authorities prioritized his parental rights over Lasonya's safety concerns. Officers advised her that denying him access to their son could result in her facing legal consequences, regardless of the danger he posed. Social service agencies, overwhelmed and underfunded, offered temporary solutions without addressing the root causes of her vulnerability. Emergency housing options were limited to short-term stays, forcing Lasonya to rely on hotels she could barely afford after losing her job. These systemic gaps created a perfect storm where seeking help often increased rather than decreased her danger. The morning of February 21st, 2021 began like many others for Lasonya Agee. The winter chill hung over Chicago's South Side as she prepared for the day with her 3-year-old son. Text messages from Sistrunk had started early, a mixture of demands and vague threats that had become distressingly routine. What made this Sunday different was Sistrunk's insistence on meeting in person to resolve things once and for all. Lasonya had agreed to a brief public meeting, believing the presence of others would keep the situation from escalating. She chose to meet near her grandmother's home in the 7800 block of South Muskegon, a familiar neighborhood where she felt some measure of safety. Her son accompanied her, as finding childcare on short notice had proven impossible. Surveillance cameras would later capture Lasonya arriving in her vehicle shortly after 2 in the afternoon. She parked carefully, checking her surroundings before helping her son from his car seat. Sistrunk's car appeared minutes later, pulling alongside hers with unusual precision. A detail investigators would later note suggested premeditation rather than a spontaneous encounter. The initial conversation appeared calm to onlookers. Lasonya stood near her vehicle, maintaining distance while speaking with Sistrunk, who remained in his car. Their exchange lasted approximately 7 minutes before Lasonya turned to walk away, a decision that seemed to trigger something in Sistrunk. His expression changed, according to witnesses, from controlled to enraged in an instant. What happened next would transform a street corner in Chicago into the scene of a nightmare that would forever alter multiple lives. "Get back in the car," Sistrunk demanded, his voice carrying across the street as Lasonya walked away with her son. When she refused, continuing toward her grandmother's house, the situation deteriorated with terrifying speed. Sistrunk exited his vehicle, and witnesses reported seeing him reach beneath his jacket. We were talking for a minute, and he was trying to make me get back in his car with him, and I said no. Lasonya would later recall from her hospital bed. He then said, okay, and pulled up and started shooting. The first bullet struck Lasonya in her back, spinning her around to face her attacker. The next 10 shots came in rapid succession, hitting her chest, abdomen, arms, and legs. The surveillance footage, later described by prosecutors as methodical, showed Sistrunk adjusting his aim between shots to maximize damage. Despite being hit multiple times, Lasonya remained conscious, her body entering survival mode. She collapsed to the pavement, instinctively curling around her son to shield him from bullets. Blood pooled beneath her as neighbors, hearing the gunshots, called 911. Sistrunk, seemingly satisfied with his work, returned to his vehicle and drove away at normal speed, as if he had just completed an ordinary errand. In the chaos of gunfire and screams, Lasonya's 3-year-old son displayed extraordinary courage that defied his young age. As his mother lay bleeding on the concrete, the child did not run or freeze in terror. Instead, he moved toward her with purpose, his small hands reaching for her. "He was trying to help me," Lasonya later recounted, her voice breaking with emotion. "He said, 'Come on, Mom.'" Those 3 simple words, "Come on, Mom," became a lifeline, pulling Lasonya back from the edge of consciousness when surrender to darkness seemed inevitable. The boy attempted to pull his mother toward safety, his tiny fingers gripping her clothing with desperate determination. When this proved impossible, he stayed beside her, patting her face to keep her awake until help arrived. Neighbors who witnessed the scene described the child speaking continuously to his mother, his voice steady despite the horror surrounding him. This extraordinary bond between mother and son created a moment of profound humanity amid unspeakable violence, a 3-year-old refusing to accept the loss of his mother. The violence didn't end with Lasonya. Hearing the gunshots, her grandmother and uncle rushed outside to help. Unaware, they were running toward an armed man with no intention of leaving witnesses. Sistrunk turned his weapon on them without hesitation, firing 8 times. "I believe he was trying to kill everyone and leave no witnesses," Lasonya later stated from her hospital bed. Her grandmother suffered gunshot wounds to her leg and hip, while her uncle was struck in the chest and shoulder. Their injuries, though severe, were not fatal, a fact that would later prove crucial as they provided testimony identifying Sistrunk as the shooter. If you're finding the story disturbing, you should. Could you recognize these warning signs in a loved one's relationship? Would you know how to help? Stay with me as we examine how this tragedy unfolded and what we can learn to prevent similar violence. Like and subscribe for more life-saving awareness. Hours after the shooting, while Lasonya fought for her life in surgery, Larry Sistrunk made a calculated decision that revealed the true nature of his character. He positioned his phone camera, adjusted the lighting, and went live on Facebook to an audience of friends, family, and acquaintances who had no idea what had transpired earlier that day. "I threw everything away. Ain't no coming back from this," he began, tears streaming down his face in what appeared to be genuine remorse. The performance was masterful. His voice cracked at precisely the right moments. His hands trembled visibly, and he repeatedly wiped away tears while looking directly into the camera. For 27 minutes, Sistrunk crafted a narrative portraying himself as a man overcome by emotion rather than a calculated attacker. He never explicitly detailed his actions, but made vague references to having lost control and made the biggest mistake of my life. The tears, however, were not for Lasonya or her family. They were for himself. Most revealing was his language. "They're going to lock me up forever, and my life is over now," focusing entirely on the consequences he faced rather than the harm he had caused. This digital confession, preserved by viewers who recorded the stream, would later become crucial evidence for prosecutors building their case against a man whose remorse extended only to his own circumstances. Chicago Police Department officers arrived at the scene within minutes of the 911 calls, finding Lasonya, her grandmother, and Uncle all suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. The priority shifted immediately to emergency medical response, with paramedics working frantically to stabilize the victims before transport to the University of Chicago Medical Center. The investigation began simultaneously, with officers securing the perimeter and detectives canvassing for witnesses. The breakthrough came quickly when investigators discovered multiple surveillance cameras had captured the entire incident with remarkable clarity. The footage provided irrefutable evidence of the shooting and a clear image of Sistrunk's face and vehicle. Detectives moved quickly to obtain search warrants for Sistrunk's residence and digital accounts. His Facebook Live confession, reported by multiple viewers, became a central focus of the investigation. While the digital confession provided motive and admission, the ballistic evidence told the more damning story. 11 shell casings at the scene matched the weapon registered to Sistrunk, creating an airtight chain of evidence linking him directly to the attempted murders. The Cook County State's Attorney's Office moved swiftly, filing 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder against Larry Sistrunk. The charges carried potential sentences of 26 to 50 years for each count, with additional enhancements for the use of a firearm during the commission of a felony. Prosecutors emphasized the premeditated nature of the attack, citing the surveillance footage showing Sistrunk's deliberate approach and methodical shooting. His Facebook confession, though indirect, provided further evidence of his consciousness of guilt. The judge denied bail, citing the extreme violence of the crime and Sistrunk's flight risk, ordering him held in custody pending trial. Lasonya's journey back from the brink began in the intensive care unit, where surgeons worked for 14 hours to repair the catastrophic damage caused by 11 bullets. The medical team described her survival as nothing short of miraculous, noting that any single one of several wounds could have been fatal. Her recovery demanded extraordinary resilience.
Attend the chilling story of what's happened to another Chicago mother. She was shot 11 times in a cold-blooded shooting. She is thankful to be alive and tonight demands some answers. NBC5's Regina Waldrop live with her story tonight. Regina?
Stephan, what an amazing story of survival. This young woman says three people identified the shooter as her ex-boyfriend, also the father of her young son, to police. But tonight, no community alert, no charges. The only thing police telling us, this case still being investigated. Lasonya AG stronger than she ever imagined.
I just thank God I'm here.
Still here after getting shot 11 times, she says, by an abusive ex-boyfriend.
He only hit me 11 times. That's how many times he hit me. This doesn't count the bullet holes on my car.
Well, she doesn't want you to see her face as she recovers in the hospital.
He mostly hit my pelvis and my right leg.
She wants you to hear her story.
I believe he was trying to kill me and leave no witnesses.
The February 21st shooting in the 7800 block of South Muskegon captured on surveillance video. It happened as Lasonya was getting out of a car.
We were talking for a minute. He was trying to make me get in the car with him. And I'm like, no. He then said, okay. And he pulled up and he pulled back and started shooting.
Lasonya's grandmother, her uncle, also shot and recovering. Her 3-year-old son who was with her was not injured.
He was trying to help me. He said, come on, mama, come on.
Lasonya says her ex is armed, dangerous, and still on the run.
I feel like if I was to leave right now, and maybe he'll finish me off.
She wants her story to be a lesson to others.
It's not worth it. You see me, I got shot 11 times by someone I loved and someone I shared a child with.
When multiple indicators appear simultaneously, as in Lasonya's case, the danger becomes acute and requires immediate intervention. The National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233, provides 24-hour crisis support, safety planning, and referrals to local resources. Their trained advocates can help victims assess their danger level and develop personalized safety strategies. Legal aid organizations in most communities offer free representation for protection orders and custody matters, addressing the financial barriers that often prevent victims from accessing legal protection. These services typically operate on sliding fee scales or pro bono models, specifically designed for those in crisis. Safe housing options extend beyond traditional shelters. Many communities now offer confidential transitional housing programs that allow victims and their children to remain in their school districts while maintaining anonymity. Housing voucher programs specifically for domestic violence survivors can provide rental assistance for up to 24 months. Financial independence programs through organizations like Free From and the Allstate Foundation provide emergency grants, credit building opportunities, and entrepreneurship training specifically designed for survivors rebuilding economic stability after leaving abusive relationships. If you recognize warning signs in your own relationship, begin by documenting incidents in a secure location your partner cannot access. Online tools like DocaSafe allow victims to record evidence while automatically backing it up to secure cloud storage, creating a time-stamped record for future legal proceedings. When supporting someone in an abusive relationship, avoid judgment or ultimatums. Statements like, "You need to leave immediately," often backfire, as they echo the controlling dynamics victims are already experiencing. Instead, validate their experience, offer specific help. "I can drive you to appointments," rather than, "Let me know if you need anything," and respect their timeline for making changes. For your own protection, create a safety plan before attempting to leave a dangerous relationship. This includes securing important documents, establishing a separate financial account, identifying safe housing options, and coordinating with trusted allies who can provide support during the high-risk separation period. Remember that the most dangerous time for victims is during separation. 75% of domestic homicides occur when victims are leaving or have recently left their abusers. No system alone can prevent domestic violence. It requires vigilant communities willing to recognize warning signs and take action. When we collectively refuse to dismiss private matters and instead offer concrete support without judgment, we create environments where victims can safely seek help before violence escalates to tragedy. Today, Lasonya AG continues her remarkable journey of recovery and advocacy. The 11 bullets that tore through her body on that February afternoon failed to destroy her spirit. Through 27 surgeries, countless physical therapy sessions, and the ongoing psychological healing process, she has transformed from victim to survivor to advocate. Her son, now 7 years old, remains her greatest motivation. Together, they are rebuilding a life defined not by the violence they endured, but by the future they are creating. Lasonya has returned to school, pursuing a degree in social work with the goal of supporting other survivors through the complex maze of recovery and rebuilding. The scars on her body have become what she calls maps of survival, physical reminders of her strength rather than markers of victimization. "Each morning I wake up is another victory," she says. "Another day that proves he failed to silence me." This perspective transforms her ongoing challenges into testimony of resilience that inspires others facing similar battles. Lasonya's case illuminates the urgent need for systemic reform in how we address domestic violence. The predictable pattern of escalation that preceded the shooting represents thousands of similar situations unfolding right now across America, many without the miraculous survival that allowed Lasonya to tell her story. The gaps in protection revealed by her experience have sparked policy changes in several jurisdictions. Chicago police departments have implemented enhanced training on identifying high-risk domestic violence cases, and some courts have revised their approach to parental rights when abuse is documented. These changes, while incremental, represent lives potentially saved through lessons learned from tragedy. Perhaps most significantly, Lasonya's willingness to share her story has challenged the silence surrounding domestic violence. By speaking openly about her experience, she has created space for others to recognize danger in their own relationships and seek help before violence escalates. This ripple effect of awareness represents the most powerful legacy of her survival. The attempted murder of Lasonya AG represents both a catastrophic failure of our protection systems and a testament to the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. Her story forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about how domestic violence thrives in the gaps between our legal, social, and community responses. Yet in these same gaps, we find the potential for transformation. Every restraining order properly enforced, every threat taken seriously by authorities, every bystander who recognizes warning signs and offers support. These represent opportunities to write different endings to stories that too often conclude in tragedy. Lasonya survived to ensure others won't have to. If this story moved you, take action now. Like this video to help our algorithm reach more viewers who need this information. Subscribe to Explosive True Crime Stories for more content that goes beyond sensationalism to provide life-saving awareness and prevention strategies. Share this video with someone who might benefit from understanding these warning signs. You never know whose life you might save. In the comments, let us know what domestic violence resources exist in your community so others can find help. Together, we can transform these stories from tragedies into catalysts for change. One subscription, one share, one conversation at a time. Your engagement matters.